I created a fourth first stage starter for every single region. Today it is time to evolve 4 of them into their respected second stages. This was the first time I ever made second stages for my Fakemon, but I feel like I did a great job at that. Now before we head into the drawing, let's have a quick look at the Kanto second stages. We have Ivysaur, who seems to have gotten bigger, a more fierce look, and a more detailed plant on his back. We have Charmeleon, who got a lot more defined limbs, an extrusion on the back of its head, and his flame appears to have gotten bigger. We then have Wartortle, who seems to look a lot fiercer as well, has developed wing-like ears, and has more details in his tail. I believe the biggest things we can take away from this is that they have all gotten bigger and more mature proportions. They all look way more confident in their own abilities. We began by deciding that we wanted the pose to mirror the one of Sceptor and added in a sphere for his head shape. I will admit that I was pretty scared to work on this piece because I wasn't sure if I was able to make a version of a raptor that would look a bit older than our previous one. Luckily, this feeling disappeared quite quickly and we got a raptor looking body in no time by using some simple shapes. We made sure to make his body a bit thicker and made his head a bit smaller compared to it as well. We then brought back his electric tail, which we changed ever so slightly, but we wanted it to stay quite simple because it is of course still a Gen 1 Pokemon. After this we worked on his limbs and it wasn't actually as difficult to draw as the first stage was, purely because we now had a reference piece we could follow. The last details we added were the scales on most of the same parts as the first stage. The line art phase actually goes by a lot easier now as well, since we just scale up the original designs before starting on it, which makes us able to see if it has the right thickness. For the colors, the second stages appear to be using a slightly darker and different hue color for their elements. This meant that we were going for a dark and a bit more orangey yellow for its body, and we did the same thing for his belly color. The scales on his body got a darker color as well, and although I didn't want his eye color to be as bright as the first stage was, I did still make it quite bright to let it pop out from the rest of his colors. The shading was once again a big success for Gen 1, and I really think it makes look like it belongs as the second stage of Sceptor. Elector, the raptor Pokemon. It is a menace in its homeland, causing wildfires to start from the electricity it generates as it runs. The pictures of Elector are never consistent, as it's so fast that not even a slow motion camera can get a clear shot of it. So far this has to be the most realistic line I've ever made. There are definitely some flaws in the design perspective wise, but I do think it genuinely looks like a Pokemon. It also blends in nicely with the other middle evolutions from this generation, so you could say I'm definitely happy with this drawing. Next up are the second stages of Johto. We have Bayleaf that seems to build further on the already established elements of the first stage, Kulava who mostly changes his proportions, but it also opened his eyes and gave him another fiery element. And we have Crocodile who appears to have changed the most of this trio and became a stronger and bulkier version of its first stage. Our goal would be to play around with the proportions and to see if we can upgrade the already existing elements as well. The first thing we did was once again flipping the pose to the other side and started to build out its body into simple shapes. I wanted to make sure that we used a similar pose to the first stage, but I also wanted it to be slightly different and to make it show a bit more strength. We managed to pull this off by giving him one arm to the side, which makes him look like he's flexing, while at the same time supporting its body with its other arm. We then extended the hair on the top of his head into a crest, what of course makes him look a lot more like a teenager. The first face we drew actually looked really nice already as well, so we only had to make minor adjustments to that part of the design. I did decide to go with a closed mouth because this would make him seem more confident instead of just cute and happy. Our one big struggle point was with the eyes we added to his back previously. I wasn't sure how I wanted to change it, or even if it had to be that different from the first stage. I eventually decided to go with a simple but effective icy backpack. This would be quite a big change because in the first stage it actually looked like it was his tail. It wasn't actually that difficult to make because we only had to use a simple line that would just extend beyond its back. The last things we did were to fix his belly pattern and to make the nails on his feet work. For the colors we just used the same palette, but with some slight changes in hue and saturation. Minaterium, the sloth Pokemon. This Pokemon is an excellent climber thanks to its curved claws and eyes on its elbows. There are very few surfaces that this Pokemon is unable to scale. It uses its great climbing skills to climb up the peak of mountains where it refills the ice on its back so it can bring it to the top branches of the tallest trees to try and sleep cooled down without being disturbed. I think we did an amazing job with creating an evolution for Minaterium. It once again uses similar elements as the first stage, but also builds the concept a little bit further than before. I am definitely quite happy with how it blends in with the others too. I created a brush set with all my favorite brushes. I use each of them with every drawing that I make, so if you want to draw in the same style as me, I recommend checking out my website. For only €5.99, you can get the Procreate brush set, which you will be able to use in Procreate. It includes an amazing line art brush, a highlight brush which instantly makes your pieces look a lot better, and many other fantastic brushes. I also want to have a written down version of how to create Paradox Pokemon. That's why I created this step-by-step guide. It's easy to follow, and I added a bunch more tips you can use while drawing. You will also get the work files of the 2 Paradox Pokemon we created, and I added 2 work files with just a line art so you can practice coloring and shading. This guide is also available for €5.99 on my website, but since I thought you guys might be interested in buying it together with the brush set, I made it into a combi deal for only €8.99 for the both of them. That is a 25% discount, so I know what I would do. We're now going to take a look at the middle stages of Hoenn. We have Growfile, who has quite a lot of new details on his design, and of course has a big change in his anatomy. We have Combusken, who has now developed arms and much stronger looking legs. Finally we have Marshtomp, who has a much more mature body and moves into a more bipedal animal. This is the first region where I feel like the evolutions are a bit more different than just a bigger version of the first stage. We once again started by adding in his face, but I must say I was a bit scared to move too far away from our first stage. The reason for this was that I already had a direction in mind for this piece. I mostly wanted this piece to look a bit stronger, but especially more chill. This was pretty easily achieved by the pose we gave him, since we made the pose look like he was sitting on the couch to watch some football on the TV. We also extended his eyebrows a bit further than his first stage, and were mostly focused on fine-tuning all the proportions. I was happy with the design just floating in the air, but someone in my chat reminded me that it would look a bit flat compared to the other second stages in this generation. This made us go with a Psychic Energy Cloud, which he would use as a chair. For the colors we went with a slightly darker version of the colors of Psyape, and we of course had to add a new color for the cloud he is sitting on. We went with a nice yellow color for this element, because this color goes really well with the purple color of his main body. Sonky, the Psychic Ape Pokemon. With a new evolution comes newfound power, and the power that Sonky has is much greater than before. It is now able to lift itself off the ground with a lot more ease. This ability is vital as it spent so long as a Psyape trying to unlock its psychic powers that it has hardly learned to walk. Although I quite like this design, it doesn't cut it in between the amazing other second stages of Hoenn. I guess that the final evolution will have to hard carry this entire evolution line. It does however blend in decently well, which is mostly due to the colors we have used. The next region are the second stages of Sinnoh. We have Grotto, who has quite a big body change, making his shield move onto his neck and moving his leafy features to its back instead of his head. We have Monferno, who mostly just got bigger limbs, but did have some actual changes changes in his face and tail. Last but not least, we have Primplop, who just like Grotto has received quite a big change in his proportions and details as well. All of these designs feel like they are building up quite nicely to a different body type for the final stage, so that's definitely something we have to keep in mind for our design too. This drawing was actually pretty easy because for us, the direction for the final stage was already clear from the start. I'm not entirely sure what the final stage will look like because I want to keep it open for as long as I can, but I did already know that I wanted to have a snake with arms, and if we take a look at our first stage, we could instantly tell which detail we could add on to this stage. We began by sculpting his face into a more skull looking version and just a fiercer looking one in general. We also extended the pattern of Poisizzle into an almost crown looking extrusion. For the body we first thought of a coiled up pose, but this felt too much like Ekans, so we went with a more active pose instead. Now that the pose was finalized, we could finally bring in the arms and decided to add some pretty sharp claws on them too. This would just open a lot of possibilities for the final stage. I do think we made a mistake on the eye department because they feel a bit too big for a second stage, but making them too much smaller made them feel out of place due to the size of the other elements on his face. For the colors we once again just went with some darker and slightly different use of the colors used on Poisizzle's design. Toxizzle, the Gorgon Pokemon. This Pokemon seems to not only have to rely on its poison anymore and can do great amounts of damage with its big claws. However, the poison is still a great part of its fighting style, since it appears to have gotten stronger and not even Vanillai's eyes can be used as treatments for the wounds anymore. Luckily, the structure of Vanillish eye seems to do the trick now. In the end, I am happy with this finished piece, but I definitely think it could be improved big time. I do however think an awkward look fits in great with it being a second stage though. If we would be taking a look at how it blends in with the others, I would say it blends in okay, but nothing more than that since the eyes differ quite a bit by being yellow. Well everyone, these were the first 4 second stages of our newly made starters. Next week we'll be doing a different challenge. We will be coming back for this one, no worries. And we will be taking a look at the mega set we'll make for Pokemon ZA. Let me know which design was your favorite today, and goodbye!